Well, this was interesting. Oh my goodness. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the debate between Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk and Secular Talk's Kyle Kulinski at this year's Politicon. It was something I was looking forward to. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is obviously Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes was blocked by security. I looked at a Vincent James post. He said it was actually Charlie Kirk's security. Now, that turns out to be true. I think that's despicable. I think that's going full retard. You can't talk about free speech and how the left is, trying to censor free speech while you're trying to stop someone from entering the debate that's going on. And the reason why is what Nick Fuentes says. The security told him that due to his Twitter post, that it was indicative of him possibly being a nuisance, possibly him, disrupting the debate.
Nick, has security gave you an official reason for you being kicked out? What's the reason?
They said that what I tweeted yesterday about the event was indicative of the fact that I might disrupt, that I pose a risk.
Now, me personally, I think that's a bunch of bullcrap. Absolute nonsense. It's kind of similar to the nonsense for which I believe, I forgot her name, something St. Clair got the boot for being in a picture with a bunch of people. I think it was the reason, she got the boot because she was in the picture with Nick Fuentes. I think Nick Fuentes, they banned him labeled him as a white nationalist. I think that's the term. I don't know if that's true. I don't really listen to any of his stuff, but I just think that's very interesting. I think that's a very interesting dynamic. I called it out for what it is. I think that's dumb if that's what they did. And I think that's a little hypocritical. There, let's move on. So this now leads us to the debate. Now, one thing many people I've heard people even say to me is like, yo, Lucas, Charlie Kirk was filibustering. That's all he was doing. That's why people think he won the debate. No, that's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. And if that's honestly what you think, if he was filibustering or talking too much, well, whose fault is that? That's Kyle Kulinski's fault. Because here's the thing, hear me out. Kyle Kulinski interrupts Charlie Kirk. I gotta just call him Charlie and Kyle. So Kyle interrupts Charlie all throughout the debate to correct him, right? At multiple points where he's like, no, that's false or wrong or this and that.
If free people want to by the sword, you die by the sword. No, let me just say, because you brought that up. If free people want things, but it was only over 90%, right? And
no, I'm talking about the corporate tax. I wasn't talking about the marginal tax rate.
Oh, you're not into it. Okay. And more people comply with the actual laws on the books.
The third thing, hold on,
I want to get to some philosophy really quick.
I'll respond just real quick.
And continue to purchase that idea over a long
Charlie,
period of time.
There's this thing.
So if he thought that Charlie was talking too much, Kyle could have simply interjected. Like, let me correct you on that, yada, yada, yada. He chose not to. He even goes so far in the debate as to tell the moderator, yo, you don't even need to be here. you can kick rocks.
But one point... You don't even need to be here. We could just keep going.
Yeah, one point...
So if you believe that he was talking too much, no one to blame but Kyle, all right? You can't blame Charlie. Charlie's going to take as much time as you're going to give him. And whatever he's saying, if it's truthful, if it's factual, then it is what it is. And the only way we can know if it's truthful or factual, if someone doesn't rebut what he's saying. If you fail to rebut the lies of your opponent, that's not your opponent's fault. That's your fault. Now, you can watch the full debate. I'll link the videos in the description box below. But I'm going to do just a brief recap of what went down. I think it started off strong. And then as it got on, as it went on, I think Kyle kind of lost it. And I think he lost because he didn't have anything to rebut with. It was just mostly just ad hominem attacks and then just saying, well, that's not true. And then not giving any, facts to say why that's not true. So I think for the most part, Charlie won the debate. I think Charlie's good, man. I think what people call him is Charlie Kirk talking point USA, which is like, it makes no sense to me. It's like they're talking points for a reason, okay? Unless you have a rebuttal or retort to that talking point, then you just say, oh, that's a talking point. That's not an argument. I hope people understand that. So we start off the debate talking about the economy and tax cuts. And Charlie Kirk goes on to praise the economy. The economy's doing great. Unemployment rate is at an all-time low. Poverty is all-time low. What else he talks about? He talks about, how people are off of food stamps, yada, 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 right?
I mean, look, we have the best economy in American history thanks to President Donald Trump. And look, we're seeing the lowest ever black unemployment rate, lowest Latino unemployment rate, lowest Asian American unemployment rate, lowest black poverty rate. We're seeing wages actually going up.
Kyle then goes on to say that, hey, Some things are doing great, but it's not all peaches and creams. Like, if you really look at the unemployment rate, the official unemployment rate, the U6 unemployment rate, it's still high. And in addition to that, even the metrics of how the mainstream media goes about addressing the economy is nonsense.
I don't think the way that we measure the economy, the metrics that are typically used by mainstream media, I don't think they're good metrics. I think they're absolutely terrible metrics. I actually should say the official one is 3.5%. The U6 unemployment rate is 6.9%, so it's significantly higher than what's often touted by mainstream media.
Charlie then goes to rebut that with saying, even with your U6 unemployment, it's still lower under Trump than what it was Obama. In addition to that, the average family income is at an all-time high. Kyle then goes on to rebut that by saying, it may be at an all-time high, and when it comes to averages, me and Bezos, the average net worth is, something $1 billion. And I think that's a good point. I'm shocked that Kyle Kulinski didn't bring up the fact that, even with income, it's great that income may be higher than it was, during Bush or whatnot. But you have to also take into account that, guess what? Everything else is higher as well. Just because you have more money, well, that's voided if the price of the product goes up, right? If I have $5, the bread costs $10, someone gives me $5, now I have enough money to buy the bread, but the person who's selling the bread raises it to 15, I still don't have enough money to buy bread, even though I have more money than I did before. This then leads us to one of the greatest questions, I think, of the debate. This is probably the best question of the debate, bar none. And it comes from Kyle Kulinski when he poses the question to Charlie Kirk, asking him about wealth creation. Because Charlie was talking about how we need to stop, demonizing wealth creation and whatnot. And, Kyle's like, that's not happening. And I don't think that's happening either. I think what the left is trying to demonize is greed. And I think they may be doing a poor job of it, but I don't think it has anything to do with wealth creation. Because you can't have all the social programs that they want to have without the billionaires, without the millionaires. So I think they want those people to be successful so that way they can siphon the money from them. But the question that he poses is, Bezos is worth $150 billion. So we can take 1% of his $150 billion to end homelessness for veterans. Would you do it?
Look, I just want to test your theory real quick on wealth creation here. So I'm going to give you 2 facts. I just want a yes or no answer. Jeff Bezos has over $150 billion. There are 50,000 homeless veterans in this country. If you could take 1% of his money to end homelessness for veterans, would you do it?
And I think that's such a great question because it highlights this divide. It highlights this great divide that we have. Because Charlie Kirk is like, no, I'm not going to force him. If he wants to do it voluntarily, then great.
I hope he gives it voluntarily. I will not put a gun to his head. That's no. I'll tell you why. First of all,
and Kyle Kulinski is like, nah, the complete opposite. He's like, yes, I would do it in a heartbeat. He doesn't say that, but that's obviously, the mindset that he has. And I think you have to, I feel like, what if we can hit the middle ground? Whereas like, we don't have to force him, but what happens if we can incentivize, the Jeff Bezos of the world to help out the homeless vets more than they already do? And I think the rebuttal to that is that, even if he doesn't do that voluntarily, well, I think we should have the power to force him, right? Because how did he build up his $1 billion company? It's through the help of the employees that he hired to help him build him up to where he is. I think that would have been a great conversation to have. I would have loved to hear just a full debate on that. So moving on, then the debate starts going into dissenting opinions. Kyle Kulinski talks about, how the left, whenever they have a dissenting opinion, they're seen as unpatriotic. Why can't the right just, accept their views? Like, this is how I want to make the America different. This is how I want to make the world better. Why can't you just accept that without, deeming me as unpatriotic or I hate America?
Excuse me, why is it that when left-wing people protest and when they dissent, all of a sudden it's unpatriotic and you hate America? Why can't it just be, no, these are my ideas and I think these would fix the country even if you don't agree? See, I'm willing to grant you that whatever you say, you actually are saying it because you want to fix the country. But why is it that you don't give lefties that respect? All of a sudden when there's somebody on the left, you think, oh no, it's because you hate America. That's why you're saying X, Y, and Z.
And this obviously leads to Kaepernick and Ferguson. And Kyle once again brings home where it's like, I understand when it comes to Ferguson. That's not good, which is why it's so important that we should praise what Kaepernick did. Now, I'm not really fond of how Charlie responds to this, because I think what people need to understand is that there's context. Kneeling during the national anthem, what do you think that's going to do? Yes, it's peaceful protesting, but it's not going to help. It's not going to help your agenda. If your goal is to bring a light to police brutality, kneeling at the national anthem isn't the best way to go about it, right? Yeah, it could be peaceful protesting, but how do you think that's going to be seen? Do you think that could possibly be misconstrued as being unpatriotic, given the national anthem and what that represents? And Charlie Kirk does give the history of the national anthem and why it's so important. So I'm just like, yo, wait, we can agree with the dissent, but not necessarily how you go about dissenting. So I think we got to merit that context to the action. Then it starts to wrap up with Charlie Kirk talking about how, the political violence is mainly on one side. This triggers Kyle Kulinski. It triggers him probably less than the transgender comment that Charlie Kirk says early on. Because Charlie Kirk says, yo, if you misname someone, you could go to jail in California. And, Kyle loses it with that. He's like, oh, that's nonsense. That's hyperbolic rhetoric. It's, under the First Amendment. But the crazy part is, it's actually true.
It depends on where you live in the country. I mean, in California, it's perfectly fine to border jump or line cut to come into our country, but if you misgender someone, you could face prison time in California. So
that's totally not true.
It is. The law is on the books. There is a law on the books that if you're an employee of the state government of California and you misgender someone, as they go to prison for workplace harassment. That is speech police.
This is hyperbolic nonsense. We have the First Amendment, and that's the supreme law of the land.
There's actually a law. Now, whether or not it's it would lead to that, but it's on the books, right? It's on the books where it's like, yo, it can lead to a fine or possible, incarceration or jail time. So it's actually factual. So I think that's really funny that even Kyle Kulinski didn't even believe that to be true, which it is. I think that shows how far one side is gone. But anyways, back to the political violence. I honestly don't know why Kyle Kulinski took the bait on this, because Charlie Kirk, this was obviously a setup. A mile away, especially if you know the history of what's happening. So Charlie Kirk talks about, how there's political violence on one side. Kyle rebuts with, well, Caesar Sayak, the guy with the MAGA hat who did, the horrible acts.
So show me a singular instance where there are people wearing MAGA hats waiting outside of a leading Democrat.
I'll do you one better. How about a guy named Caesar Sayak who murdered people with a fucking MAGA hat on?
Yeah! And then Charlie Kirk obviously hits him up with, the Bernie Sanders supporter and the Elizabeth Warren supporter. So I was just like, yeah, you lost points there.
How about the shooter in Dayton, Ohio that said Elizabeth Warren was his hero and then he went and shot 10 people? What about that, Kyle? We can go back and forth all day long.
Real dangerous.
Or how about the guy that shot up the congressional baseball field that loved Bernie Sanders? We can go back all day long.
Then it gets into the Ukraine issue. And this is where really Kyle kind of falls apart, because he's really upset about Ukraine. He's like, yo, Ukraine and then Saudi Arabia gave Trump, they funneled $300K into his hotel, and then that's what sparked the $1 billion deal with Saudi Arabia over the weapons deal.
Trump owns a hotel in Washington, D.C. And would you look at that? The Saudi government just happened to funnel him $300,000 through that hotel. Would you look at that? Donald Trump just approved a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal that goes to Saudi Arabia as they're committing a genocide in Yemen.
Face value, it makes no sense. So you're going to give someone $300K, and then in return, the person that you're bribing, right? The person that you're alleged to bribe with this $300K, is then going to sign a $1 billion weapons deal? That makes no sense. If you're going to give me $300K, I'm not going to sign a $1 billion weapons deal with you, player. I'm going to need a little bit more than $300K to sign a $1 billion weapon deal.
To be honest, when a guy has a net worth of $3.8 billion and has hundreds of millions of dollars going through his entire international organization, that somehow he's influenced by $300,000 at a DC asset hotel to approve a weapons deal. I mean, there you go. You're the conspiracy theorist if you think that's actually what's happening.
Especially when you get into the Ukraine, when, Charlie Kirk breaks it down. It's like, yo, they didn't even know that, the funds were being withheld. So it's just, when you look into it, it just makes no sense. And then Charlie Kirk tries to press him. He's like, yo, where in the transcript does it say what you're saying? Where in the transcript does it say what you're saying? You're mischaracterizing what is taking place. And this, of course, triggers Kyle, and Kyle's like, I don't have the effing transcript in front of me.
Kyle, I'll ask the third time. I want you to cite the specific part of the transcript call.
Charlie, I don't have the f***ing transcript in front of me.
Well, because
why are you being ridiculous?
Because if it existed, if this smoking gun existed, people would say, here's what he said wrong, and here's the specific U.S. criminal code that was violated.
But here's the thing. Whose fault is that, Pimpin'? That's your fault. You can't be upset that Charlie Kirk called you out. Because here's the thing, if you knew that you were going to be bringing this up in the debate, and it's a hot topic right now, we all know it, so you knew it was going to eventually come out some way or another, why wouldn't you at least have a quote, a summarization, something to back up and bolster the point you were trying to make? And then he starts talking about, Ivanka Trump and Jared. I'm not a big fan of the nepotism that's going on. Not at all. But when it comes down to that, he talks about, well, if you think that, they had $81 million, they made $81 million in a year or something like that while working for the White House. If you think that's okay, then I have a bridge to sell you.
You know how much money Jared and Ivanka made since Donald Trump became president? $83 million in 1 year. If you think there's nothing wrong with that, I got a bridge to sell you.
How is that bad? Unless you have proof, unless you have facts and evidence that that's ill-gotten gains, then all you have is conjecture. You're essentially a conspiracy theorist. That's what you are. So, I mean, Charlie Kirk addresses that. He's like, yo, they were making money. They were making that much money, even more, before they started working for the White House. So it's like, what are you talking about? These were deals that are already going on. So that's when, Kyle just loses it. To me, he lost it. Because I was like, all you're doing is just saying, what? But look. It's like, okay, what? There's nothing to look at unless you have some, whistleblowers like, oh, they got this through, coercion or something. It's like, that's nothing. It's a nothing burger. It's similar to the Saudi Arabia and all that. It's a nothing burger. But it was a good debate. I think he didn't bring his A game. We'll just say that. I don't think he brought his A game. I think Charlie Kirk came prepared. I think he had the facts. It was just like, yo, this is what's going on. This is what's happening, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing you could say except, I don't know. That's how I saw it. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Whether or not you believe Lucas, you're a shill. You don't know anything. Kyle Kulinski destroyed Charlie Kirk. Or if you can't believe, I don't see that. I just don't see that. I think that he was doing well. It was going head to head in the beginning, and then slowly he became unhinged. Either or. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. That fun stuff. Till next time, guys. Be amazing.
Kyle, you should start refuting what I'm saying, not swearing and walking around.